Okay, guys, today we are going to be dry curing some pork loins. So this is going to be the first step in the process, and I just want to show you guys real quick the equipment and things that we've got ready to go. Here are some of the pork loins. We are going to do a total of 10 pork loins. I've got my 25 pounds of sea salt. We've got a couple containers that the salted loins are going to go into. Cutting board, a knife, some star sand. Make sure to sanitize all of your equipment with star sand before you touch your meat with it. A little pre-game action, we gotta feed the soul here. So, okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started, and I'm gonna show you guys the entire process from beginning to end. So, it's a lot of that looks. All right, guys, I trimmed this one up pretty good. This is the side that had all the sinew and the fat. Might trim off a little bit more here, but other than that, pretty clean. A couple little spots of sinew, that shouldn't be an issue. I want to point out, you're going to see on every pork loin this darker meat right here. When you're cooking, I think this is the sirloin. You're starting to catch some sirloin here, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong. This might be shoulder. But either which way, this is the most delicate part of the loin, and in my opinion, it's the best part of the loin, especially if you're grilling it. But even more so with dry cured pork. So this other side, you could see here, it's in great shape. You can see this dark meat streak right here. Didn't have to do anything here. This is I'm going to leave all of this stuff here. This is all good. And what we're trying to do here is essentially just trim off the fat and the silver skin, more so the silver skin. Removing the fat is going to allow the salt to penetrate deeper and quicker into the loin for the next part of the dry curing process. All right, so now we've trimmed all the meat. We've got the scale on, we've got the container on. We're going to go ahead and start weighing. These are the long loins. All right. So the container with the lid is 2.4 pounds, but we put the tare weight on there. So right here we're at 24.7 pounds. So we'll need to make a salt addition to this container for 3% of 24.7, and that'll be in pounds. So we'll have to convert that to ounces. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, so now we did the math. We multiplied the total pounds times 16 to convert it to ounces. And then we're now going to add 11.85 ounces of salt to this. Perfect. Close enough. Okay, so that's it. That's the amount of salt we're going to need for those 4 loins. All right, guys, so now we've got our 11 ounces of salt. We're going to spread it all over the loins. We're going to flip them. We're going to do the other side. Put it back in the container. Any salt that's left, we're going to wrap it up. 3% salt. You can see it's pretty tremendous amount of salt. But you really want to make sure you're extracting all the water out of these loins. get them to be microbially stable. You can see I got a little bit of salt left. So what we're going to do is try to evenly if you don't add enough salt, the meat's going to be somewhat under dried, and it's going to spoil on you. So just make sure to go a full 3%. You can see this meat's already starting to sweat a little bit. And now what we're going to do is put this into the fridge, cover it with a lid, and tomorrow morning I'm going to pull it out. There's going to be water at the bottom of the bin. We're going to dump that water, and we're going to keep dumping the water every day until essentially there is no more water. This should take about 3 days. And then from there, we're going into the equalization period. Okay, guys, so here we are 24 hours later. The meat has been sitting in the refrigerator, 36 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a little cold, but good enough. So now I'm going to pull this out. You can see there's a little bit of moisture accumulation down there at this point. We're going to go ahead and pull it out and dump all the excess moisture off. Okay, guys, so here we are. This is the first dumping of the water. I'm going to go ahead and take the lid off. Take the lid off of this container as well. And so again, remember, these are the top pieces, right? So we're going to just go ahead and line these up essentially the way they were. So this one goes down, this one goes down, and you can see immediately just pulling these things out, they're way, way stiffer. They smell fantastic. They're way stiffer and they're quite a bit thinner. Now, just so you guys can see, this is how much water we've extracted out of the pork loins. And to get your meat microbially stable, you need to get the water out, right? So we're trying to lose 35% of the water. So I'm going to go ahead and dump this, give it a quick rinse, bring it back, and we're going to rearrange the meat. Okay, so took it into the house, washed it off. I strongly suggest you guys wear gloves every time you do this. If you really want to be cautious, re-sanitize your containers. It does not hurt. So now we put all the meat the same way it was facing in the container. So now we know every one of these pieces that's up has to go down, right? So I do it this way because it's consistent and I remember how to do it, and I don't want to have a senior moment and sometimes it's up and sometimes it's down. Always put them face up in the other container. Always put them face down when you put them back in. And you'll see the next time we pull this out, there's going to be very, very little water. I'd say we probably took out 4 ounces of water out of this last batch. So here are the tagged pieces. So they're going down, 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 and down. And now what's happening inside this meat, just so you know, that salt was all on the exterior and it's now penetrating down into the center of these pork loins. And you could see this thing has flattened out quite a bit. I mean, it's probably at this point, 2 inches thick, and by the time it's all said and done, this thing's going to be like 1.5 inches thick. So just know what's happening is that salt is penetrating into the center, and that's the beginning of what we call the equalization period, right? So when that salt is really heavily concentrated right now on the outside, when it basically equalizes all the way into the center of the meat, your meat is cured. And you could start smoking it before the equalization period, but you really want to keep turning it and making sure that any water that's coming off of it, you're tossing out. Otherwise, if you let it sit for a day, 2 days, 3 days, that water is going to start to stink up, and you could potentially lose your batch due to a bacterial infection. So we're going to put the lid back on this one. All right. All right, guys, not too shabby. So I covered them with a little bit of pepper and a little bit of cayenne just to spice it up a pinch. It's been a week, so we salted these last Saturday night, Sunday morning. I'm going to go ahead and string them up. They've gone through the salting period and equalization. So at this point, these are a little thicker. They could probably stand another couple days. But at this point, these are ready for smoking. So I'm going to let them hang out here for a little bit. I'm just going to string them up today and probably throw them in the smoker later tonight when it gets a little cooler. Okay, so we get a piece of string, and more is always better. I'm going to cut this at about we'll call it 14 inches, give or take. I'm going to tie a little knot in the end of it. And with that knot, I'm going to use a shish kebab skewer. Go ahead and kind of bed the tip into the skewer. And this you could do with a wooden bamboo skewer as well. It's actually easier. Let's try this again. I got a bamboo skewer. I tied my knot in the end of the string. Just gonna put it on the tip, see how much easier that is because it's a sharp point. I'm gonna go about 2 inches down, force it through, pull back the skewer, and then just take this, kind of even them up, and then just tie a little quick knot in here. And I want to give myself enough gap to where I can put it on a stick. And that's it. That is ready for the smoker. Hey guys, so we've strung up all the meat, and I'm now just letting it air dry a little bit. Pulled it out of the plastic container. You can see we've got a few of those up there with the tags on them that are pre-weighed. Those are going to be our test pieces, so we know approximately how much weight we've lost to get to 35%. Some have been spiced with a little bit of cayenne and some black pepper. Others have not. So now what I'm going to do is let these dry for anywhere between 12 and 24 hours. But I'm going to get them into the smoker as soon as possible here. So you could see we got a few more hanging over here. Some of the longer ones, first the ones that we've cut in half. Right now the outside temperature is just about 45 degrees. Let's call it 7, maybe 8 degrees Celsius. And that's going to be about as warm as you want to get it while you're hanging this meat and smoking it. So if it gets up to 50, that's kind of the borderline, depending on where you are in the drying process. So Once this meat's been smoked for about 24 hours total, so you could do 3 shifts of 8 hours, or you could just go 24 hours straight. I suggest 3 shifts of 8 hours. I think it's just a better result. Then you could bring this meat up to temp to, let's say, 50, 55 degrees, absolutely maximum. So as soon as I'm done smoking it, this is all going to go down into my basement and into my cure room. And you want it to be about 75 to 85% humidity down there. So I'm going to go set my humidifier right now and get it ready, because what I'm going to do as soon as it's done smoking, it's going to go into the cure room, and I'm going to try to keep that humidity around 75-80% until I lose all the weight that I need to lose to get down to 35% weight loss. Here in the garage, ideally, we'd like to keep it right around 80% humidity if possible. But that is really, really impractical because I've got a relatively large garage, and the temperature outside is 40, 45 degrees during the daytime, 35 at night. For me to maintain humidity in that size of a space, it would have to be warmer, number one, and number two, it would have to be a pretty gigantic humidifying machine. And that's just not practical. So what I'm going to do is just let the meat rest out here until it goes into the smoker tonight. I'm going to smoke it out 2-3 days in a row, and then it's going to go into my cure room, which at that point I can maintain temperature and humidity where I want it, which would be between 45 and 55 degrees, 75 to 80% humidity, until we get to the correct weight. So next step is tonight I'm going to go ahead and light the fire, and I'll show you guys how I get the fire started and how we smoke the meat. Okay guys, so here we are. I got the smoker up and running about 15 minutes, just a little Smoky Joe. I'm going to show you this. I'm going to try not to burn myself here. It's just a little Smoky Joe, and I made a pretty good little ash bed. I threw a couple logs in there. This should give me about 2-3 hours of smoke time. Just go ahead and put the lid on. Aluminum duct, only aluminum duct. Do not use regular galvanized duct. When galvanized duct gets hot, it puts out a chemical that is toxic. And so here you can see we're generating nice decent amount of smoke. It's clean smoke at this point. The fire is going, and here we've got the loins loaded, all of them. Longer ones are in the back, and we're going to go ahead and smoke this now for 24 hours in total, meaning 3 8-hour shifts or 1 24-hour shift if you can do that. But you want to get about, I call it 24 hours of smoke on them. So I'm going to go ahead and close this up, and we're going to let it go, and I'll pull them out at some point here and show you guys what they look like. Hey guys, so here we go, 3 days later. I just wanted to show you guys where we're at. We finished smoking the pork loins 3 nights in a row, about 8 hours a day total. And you could see all the condensation that this is a brand new little Weber, and all that condensation, because this is an aluminum duct, it cooled and it dripped out. And you could see we got a little bit of condensation. This is the problem with having a wooden smokehouse. There's no insulation. And we got a little bit of condensation drip from the top there. Not the end of the world. To tell you the truth, it's really not that big of a deal. You can see there's a couple little drips there and one there, but in general that's fine. So the temperatures were high 30s, low 30s pretty much all week, and today it dropped to the low 20s. So I'm getting these out of here. You can see they got a little bit of a golden brown color to them. I'm getting these out of here tonight because they're going to freeze if I leave them out here, and they're going to now go into the basically where I store them and dry them until the end of the process. Hey guys, so we are back in the drying chamber, and I just wanted to show you this. The drying chamber is pretty big, and I've got a lot of room here for a lot of meat. We're gonna break up the batches this year into smaller batches, so I want to break up the drying chamber into smaller areas as well. So, got the humidifier going. It's on full blast. It's been running for a couple hours. I've shrunk down the drying chamber, as you can see, with just a little bit of plastic. Doesn't have to be airtight. I installed a fan up against the window just so we can get that temperature down about 50 degrees. That's kind of the goal. And the humidity should be around 75–80% for the first couple weeks here, and then 70–75 after that. So as these dry, I'll show you guys a progress report, but these just went in. They smell fantastic, like smoke. Okay guys, so we have finished drying the pork loins, and you can see here the color on them is mahogany, dark, beautiful. They are very firm to the touch, almost over dried. I'm not going to weigh them, only because I could tell that the weight is correct. May even be a little drier than they should be, but these have definitely lost probably 40% of their weight. And that's exactly what you want. I do want to point out, you could see on a couple of these here, there's little bitty spots, like right there. See a little bit of mold growth. That is no big deal. Just take a rag or a paper towel. That's not mold. Take a rag or a paper towel. Here we go. See that? Not a big deal at all. Take a little bit of vinegar and wipe it off, and it will be perfect. So I'm going to go upstairs and cut a few of these and start vacuum packing them in just a few minutes. Okay guys, so this is it. These are smoked, cured, dried pork loins, and you can see this was done 100% natural. There are no nitrates, there are no nitrites. It's only 100% sea salt, applewood smoke, and a little bit of thyme. And you can see I started cutting it, I'm not gonna lie. It's delicious. It's not too salty at 3%. It's perfect. Not too salty. Got a little bit of pepper, a little bit of smoke. That's it. You can see here, these were the whole loins that we did. They're a little rounder in shape, a little bit thinner, but the firmness, this is really, really firm to the touch. Now, one thing I am going to say is do not be too concerned if you could see this feels a little rough to the touch. When you put these into the vacuum packer, this center here is still nice and soft. Some of that moisture is going to wick to the exterior here, and it'll soften it up, and it'll be perfect. I promise you. Put it in the vacuum packer, seal it up for 2 weeks, put a piece or two in the fridge, put the rest of it in your freezer for long-term storage. This in vacuum packed, sitting on your shelf, can probably last a couple weeks. Not that the meat would go bad, but once you vacuum pack it, it's going to cause a little bit of mold growth if it sits at room temperature. If it sits in the fridge and it's properly vacuum packed, easily 3–4 months, no problem. If you vacuum pack it and freeze it, I'd say 2 to 3 years. Maybe not that much. That might be an exaggeration. 1 to 2 years, no problem if it's frozen and vacuum sealed. If you're leaving it out, just like this, it's going to continue to dry, and it's going to get really hard, and you're not going to be able to eat it. The one nice thing about this, because it is 100% natural with only sea salt, you could cut this up, make a little pasta sauce with some cream and some peas, throw a little bit of this in there. You could do anything you want with it. You could cook with it without fear of getting sick. So eat it like this. I'm telling you, this nice glass of wine, some fresh cheese, a little bit of bread, you're good to go. You don't need anything else. So, can't get enough. All right, guys, thumbs up.